Today we're going to talk about weight fluctuations, something that I know a lot of you want to know a little bit more information about. So here at 365 Female, we leave up to you whether you want to track your weight on the scales or not. And today we're going to give you a little bit of education, so after this you can make the empowered choice whether you want to track the scales. If you've only ever tracked your progress by the number on the scales, then it's time to try something different. But if you do choose to use the scales, make sure it's not the only method that you use. We really love looking at so many other methods in terms of how you feel compared to a number on the scale. There's so many other measurements of progress, like your strength, your fitness, your consistency in the gym, your new habits that you're building, how you're feeling, how your clothes are fitting, and how your confidence is. So I'm going to run you through some information here now. When people say they want to lose weight, it's more often or not, it's body fat that they want to lose, and they're two different things, okay? Now the number on the scale is just what you weigh that day, and that includes obviously the water, blood in the body, bones, what you've had to eat. It includes a lot of things. Now that's completely different from your body composition. There's in 1 pound of body fat, there's 3,500 calories, okay? So if you said to us, right, I want to lose some body fat, we could say, let's bring in a deficit of 3,500 calories throughout the week, which would equal a loss of 1 pound of body fat. Now that's going to look a lot different to 1 pound of body fat on the scale. So this is also a good point that if you go on the scales one day and you are up by 3 pounds, there's no way that you've ate 10,500 calories in one day. So the scales go up and down all the time. That's what we're going to talk about, but it's not body fat, it's just scale weight. So if you did want to lose 1 pound of body fat in a week, we would say, right, let's create a deficit of around 500 calories a day. Now we quite like to do this in a nice balanced way. So we would say, right, let's decrease calories by maybe 250 and let's increase movement by 250. That way you're creating that 500 calorie deficit without having to say, right, let's chop 500 calories off your intake, because that's like a full meal. So it's all about trying to find a balance of how can we move more, eat a little bit less, create a deficit that you can stick to, because that's what's going to create fat loss. Right, so let's get into weight fluctuations. So 3 factors that cause weight fluctuations: diet, lifestyle, and biology. We're also going to go over the pros and cons of tracking weight and how to track it correctly. So diet, right, everything we eat obviously weighs something, okay? So food can stay in your system for 1 to 3 days. So the more food we have in our system, the heavier we're going to be on the scales. And this is just the information to get used to the fact that they're going to go up and down so dramatically. And it's a good thing that they go up and down. Even if you're trying to stick to maintenance, if you're in a deficit or if you're in a surplus, you're going to have fluctuations every single day, and that is normal. Now, in our diet, this is a really interesting fact. Nutritious foods, like let's think about your fruit and veg, for example. These are low in calorie, but they're high in volume. You could eat lots of veg, for example, fill your plate with veg. That's a lot of volume, but there's less calories in that. But believe it or not, they're full of water, and that's going to weigh more in your body. Compared to processed food or like high sugar, high fat foods are small in volume, but they're very calorific. So they're not so great for your body composition, but in terms of the scales, you're going to weigh more actually eating the nutritious food that day, okay? This is just one reason why scales are not reliable in terms of how your body is looking. Carbohydrates, so for 1 gram of carbohydrates that we eat, our body retains 3 to 4 grams of water in our muscles, and that's a good thing. But again, that's also why if people jump on a low carb diet or they maybe binge on carbohydrates, they'll see lots of spikes on the scales. So the key is to be consistent. We don't want to cut out carbs, but we want to try and avoid binging on them as well. Salt, salt, we hang on to water as well. So if you've had a high salty weekend, then you're going to weigh more on the scales afterwards. Alcohol as well. So alcohol is a diuretic. So actually in the short term, you're going to pee a lot, so you'd actually weigh less, but we know what happens after a hangover. That's when we get the munchies, and it tends to be high salt, high carbohydrate food, and we tend to almost kind of aggressively as well, speaking from example there, and that has a up and down effect on the scale. So some tips for your diet is balance, like I said, try not to cut out food groups or over binge on them, is trying to get consistency, and back to that trying to create a 500 calorie deficit throughout the day. Again, not just chopping 500 calories off food, maybe 250, but then moving more as well. and then trying to drink less alcohol is always a bonus. Right, lifestyle factors. So stress. When we have stressful situations in life, it spikes a hormone called cortisol. Now this makes us retain water. So even if you are sticking to your calorie deficit consistently week after week, but you're very high stress, the scales might not be showing your progress. This also, when cortisol goes up, the hunger hormone ghrelin goes up. So you're going to get a little bit hungrier, and then obviously those hunger is harder to control, so it might be even harder to stick to your calorie deficit, meaning more spikes on the scale. When we have high levels of cortisol, it affects our sleep, okay? So when we're struggling to sleep because we're high stress, that hunger hormone's high, we have another hormone called leptin, which is the satiety hormone, so that usually levels out our hunger, but that's lower. Ghrelin's higher, that means you're in a hungry state. So obviously stressful situations happen in life, we can obviously try and combat them, but they're going to pop up. So the more aware we are, the better. What you can do is try and prioritise sleep. So, phone down at a decent time, get into your bed as much as you can, even if you're still struggling to sleep. If you're trying to prioritise it, it hopefully will get better. And then join in relaxing activities. So if you know your stress levels are high, sometimes going in and absolutely smashing a gym session might not be the best thing to do. It might be more a gentle walk because that's more relaxing on the system. Obviously movement is great as well, and strength training. But now strength training, this does have an effect on the scales, but it's a great thing. And this is why we don't only rely on scales as a measurement of progress. If you're quite new to strength training, your weight might stay the same or it might actually go up, but your body composition will be changing. Your muscles will be filling with some water, and then we can weigh more on the scales. And this is why progress pictures are an absolute must. Your body's going to completely change. Now, you may have seen this before, or you hear about it quite a lot. People can completely transform their body and the scales do not budge. They might actually go up on the scales. They're weighing heavier, but they look incredible. They look completely different. It's because they've been building lean muscle mass. Right, let's get into biology. Now, I'm not going to go into too much of this about time of the month because we do have a specific bit of information coming your week in a few ways, but time of the month, we know that affects the weight on the scale. When your hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are fluctuating, which we'll talk more about in the next video, that makes us retain water. Okay, you get 2 spikes throughout your monthly cycle. Round about ovulation at week number 2, and then at before the time of the month as well. Actually, when you have your period, after a few days, the scales might actually level out. But if you are someone that's maybe affected by that number on the scale, well, number one, we would just say move away from it altogether. As you know, there's lots of other measurements of progress. Or round about the time of the month, if you do want to go on daily, just be aware that there is going to be those 2 spikes. Remember, it's not body fat, it's literally your hormones that are making you retain water, and there's nothing we can do about that. It's all part of being a woman. If you are peri or menopausal, me and Nicole would say let's just stay away from the scales because of the fluctuations in hormones. There's not even going to be any kind of rhythm or routine to the scale weight at all. So it will be completely clouding your vision of progress if you're just looking at the scales. Because like I say, it's your body shape will be changing if you're sticking to your calorie deficit, or if you're trying to gain muscle, if you're sticking to what you're putting in your body and your movement, that will be working, but the scales will be telling you something completely different because of the hormones. So let's just say we'll stay away from them if you're in those categories. Pros and cons of weighing in. So I'm a big believer in not the scales, but there is a few pros. So basically it might give you a little buzz, a motivation. If you are someone who likes to go on every day, which we'll come into, it is going to give you a wee buzz. It's accountability, and then it's actually good data for me and Nicole as well. If you're going on every single day, and if we can see that there's absolutely no change, like no fluctuation at all, well actually that's a lie because you will get them, but over 2 weeks, if there was no either decrease or increase, whatever you're after, me and Nicole would know, right, okay, we can mix up your calories, whether it's you need more if you want to put on muscle, or whether it's you need less if you want body fat loss. So it's data for us, but that's all it is data, okay? So there's lots of cons though, I do think. So it can affect your mindset, it can affect how you see like all your other progress, so many amazing measurements of progress, how strong you're getting in the gym, but if you're so connected to that number, you might not even look at that because that's what it means to you. So it can affect your mindset, It can affect your progress, it can affect your mood, and it can just make you feel a bit disheartened if you're doing so well with your calorie deficit and your training, but the numbers aren't changing. So there's a lot of cons in our eyes. How to track properly. So rather than going on like sporadically, because that's not very great, because if you do and you've had a high salty weekend and the first day you go on's the Monday and you're spiking away up, you're going to get disheartened. So if you do want to go on, you go on daily, every morning in your birthday suit after you've had a pee, and you're tracking that in pounds, because it's a wee bit easier to see the increments in pounds, and then you take your average over 7 to 14 days. And over time, you start to see the trends. So you're not looking at just like, right, 4 days, what's the difference? It's over about 2 weeks, right? Is there any difference there? What's my average? And then it's the trends over time. So that's the best way to track properly if you do want to track, but you let us know what your measurements of progress are going to be, and make sure it's not only weigh-in. Progress pictures are a must. Alongside, we'll be providing you with mini goals along the way, like, right, let's see if we can move from a kettlebell squat to a barbell squat. That's a great measurement of progress that's going to build so much more confidence than a number on the scale.